Thank you all for coming. My name is Joanne Levitan. I am the chair of the New Brunswick Forest Democratic Precinct. And I am very happy tonight to be hosting a candidate forum with all of the candidates except for Alison Dunlap, who unfortunately was unable to attend this evening, but she was invited. I guess let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I think your sister will. You can hold it first. This one. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some housekeeping. Emergency exits, one over there and one back there. Bathroom, men's there, ladies there. Please put your cell phones either on vibrate or turn them off. You don't want to be that person. The format that we're going to have is each candidate is going to have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. I am going to then ask questions that are submitted by an index card. So if you have a question, please go to Sandy Ford in the corner over there and have her give you an index card. You can fill out the question and submit it to Sandy. There's going to be 1 hour for questions, and then the rest of the time, the candidates are going to stay and you can speak to them individually. Before we start, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the referendum question that's going to be on your ballot about H2Go annexation, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion about that. So I wanted to do what I could to try and clarify it. The situation now is that we get our water from H2Go. H2Go sends us bills, but we have no say on who's on the H2Go Board of Commissioners and what the rates are. The ballot initiative is to ask for Brunswick Forest to be annexed into the H2Go Sanitary District, which means that next year, somebody from Brunswick Forest can run as an H2Go commissioner, and we can then have representation on the commission, which will determine our water rates. If we are not annexed in, they can raise the rates and we have no representation at all. Does anybody have any questions? Great.
So that will only be on the Brunswick Forest ballots.
That is correct. Well, everybody here should be in Brunswick Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, it was only sent to Brunswick Forest people, except for the candidates and Pat. And you. Do you also not live in Brunswick Forest?
No. Waterford.
Oh, hi. I know you guys from swimming meeting. Anyway, so for Waterford, it's different. Waterford, you do get to vote, but I suppose you also want to get to know the Leland Town Council candidates. So with that, I'm going to pass on. Oh, one other thing about the question format is the last person to answer a question is going to be the first person to answer the next question, and then we will just continue to go around to the left answering questions. So I will let Nicholas Newell start with his 90 seconds.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Newell. I'm running for town council, of course. A little bit about me. I live in Mallory Creek. No kids, unless you want to count my 2 four-legged kids. A little bit hairy. I'm running for town council because I want to see, our town council is very diverse among gender, among race, but it's not very diverse in age. And I would like to see a council that's as diverse as the population that it represents. I am glad that we have older people on council. We need those views, but I think we also need some new views, some different views, not better views, but just a different view, a different perspective, especially when we're making decisions on things like the Leland 2045 plan. That will still be very much something I'm involved with, and I'd like to have some say in how my future is developed. If you guys have any questions, feel free to come up to me afterward, and thank you for coming.
I'm Richard Holloman. I would like to be considered your voice regarding Leland's future. I think the voice of the town council with the citizens is very important. You know, a lot of citizens feel left out on certain issues and certain things. I think all of us would probably like to be that voice back to the elected officials. I was born and raised in Greenville, North Carolina, about 2 hours up the road. I'm one of the few people, at least in North Carolina, probably live in those parts, born and raised here. Went to East Carolina University, studied accounting there, graduated from there, and went to work in the computer business, and worked in the computer business for 40 years. And a couple of years after I was abroad, I moved back to Greenville and started my own business. We developed software and supported it and sold software to small municipalities and counties. We sold every town in Brunswick County in the early 80s. And we built the business. We were there for about, I was there for 10 years. Then I joined a business that's located in Wilkins Division Software, came down to run that business. And we grew that business. And that business dealt with police and fire. So from that perspective, have a great knowledge of local government from A to Z. So in that business, we were one of the top 50 companies in growth in the state. That was a real key landmark for us too. I have, and family-wise, I have 3 children, I have 7 grandchildren, and all but 2 of them live here locally in the Leland area. I think the future of Leland is awesome. I love Leland. I love most everything about it. I do think we've got some issues, but I see a great future for Leland.
I'm Bill McHugh. I live in Lambville Forest with my wife Danielle. I'm an attorney. I work in the field of clinical research. My primary role there is I'm a negotiator. And I'm a negotiator in the sense where I'm not just trying to win for the side I represent, but I'm trying to develop relationships. So I think that's really important to our community moving forward. I decided to run for town council when I saw how rapidly this community was growing and expanding. And I thought it was very important that we have the right voices in place to help manage that growth in a way that's safe, smart, sustainable, and varied. I've seen what happens when communities fall into the trappings of rapid growth and some of the problems that has. And I've also seen communities that have worked very hard to attract what they want and build in the way they want. And I've seen them grow and thrive into these amazing, vibrant communities. And I think we are at a tipping point in Leland with our growth, where we are so popular that we have the power to control our own destiny and how we grow. You know, we don't have to really beg anyone to come here. We have the opportunity to use that growth leverage to negotiate our positions and bring in what we want. And I think we need to have the right voices here to do that. I never saw myself making a career in politics or actually running for office, but I've been fascinated by it my whole life. I stayed homesick from school to watch Bush v. Gore unfold because it just blew my mind that, you know, we could finish an election cycle and not know who our president was. And that led me to majoring in political science, where I spent a big focus on policy and learning about governments. And even though, you know, I went to law school and didn't pursue the political path, I've been involved in many ways. So I really understand the role of local government and, you know, how the sausage is made and how we can use both our actual authority and our more soft authority to get the things we want for our community. And I want to be a voice for that. I want to make sure that we grow in a way that we can attract the businesses that we want and the people that we want to have as neighbors. Thank you. Time's up.
That's all right. Ready to go? All right. I'm Louis Harmati. I'm been here in North Carolina 50 years. I've lived in this region 35 years, 21 years in Leland. I have probably the most extensive government service of all of us, even though all these people are great, no doubt about it. I've spent 30 years in the government, 20 years in the military, finance officer, transportation officer, infantry officer, armor officer. I've done a lot of it in the military. I was 10 years in the government. I was auditor, and I also audited government contractors, government employees, and so I know a lot about government, 30 years worth of government. I also taught at Shaw University, a small community college here, 5 years, public administration and management. So I know about government, the public administration, and all those things. so I have a lot of experience there. I was also a small business owner. I'm not into business anymore, I'm retired, so that would give me more opportunity to work harder for you people, because I don't have nothing else to do. So I'm retired. So, but I understand the burdens of small business and things like that. And so that's another aspect that I could lend to you. And by the way, I was talking to somebody today, and they said, hey, I know about Harmati. I said, what do you know about me? They said, you're for the people. As we said, you're for the little people. So, I'm a little person. I don't make a lot of money, and retired military, I get, $2,000, $20,000 a year, that's nothing. So I'm not a big person, but, I'm just like
90
you.
seconds is up.
Was that?
90 seconds is up.
Am I up?
No, it's not.
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, anyway, we're all great people here. And our differences are, I have more experience in government, certainly I spent most of my life there. And and I have a family too. I have 6 kids, 15 grandkids. And I've also lived in this community, like I said, for most of my life, except for the first 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. For those of you that I haven't had an opportunity to meet, my name is Jason Gaver. I'm running for a seat on Leland Town Council. I'm not unlike most of you in this room. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I have a grandson, a small business owner, a veteran. I've lived a life of service. I got out of high school at 17, at 19 went into the military, spent some years on active duty, came back home to Maryland, started working in the defense industry, worked my way up to chief of staff on a large contract supporting Navy shipbuilding, and then I met a girl. And that girl was from Winnebago, North Carolina. And she came home one day and she said, I want to go home. So 2014, we relocated here. I owned a small business in the community for a number of years. I have leadership, I've held leadership positions in the community, whether it's the Leland Area Rotary Club, I'm the post commander for the VFW. In the business community, I sit on the board for the North Brunswick Chamber of Commerce. And at the county level, I sit on the Habitat for Humanity board. My motivation for running is quite simple. This is where my daughter's going to grow up. And I believe that you have to give back. You can't just take. So I want to take those skills, and I'll also sit on the town of Leland Plant Board, excuse me. I want to take that knowledge and skills and the ability and bring those to the town council level. I'd like to add, I don't think our current council does a bad job. I think they do the best job that they can do. But we have an opportunity for a change of leadership, and I ask for your vote to be one of the next members of the Leland Town Council.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to questions. First question, we'll start with Nick. Do you think the budget for the Leland Cultural Arts Center should be cut?
No, I think the Leland Cultural Arts Center offers something to our community that we wouldn't have without it. I think that people who maybe would be interested in seeing it be cut would be because they feel like that money can be better spent, or they would not want to see taxes be raised. I would challenge that thought process with, I think there are ways that we can raise money for the town without just raising people's property taxes. There's lots of processes that we could streamline, make more efficient. There are other avenues for us to bring in revenue without just raising property taxes. I also would say at this point, I mean, the building is built. What are we gonna just close it down? And a lot of people, I think, too, want to see more of a community, more of, Leland not just being a truck stop kind of town on your way to Myrtle Beach. I've said that before, but that's what I hear a lot in the community and echo it. You're not going to have that if you start closing down, event centers and things that make our community unique to us.
One of my big things that I'm looking for in the future of Leland is quality of life. I think quality of life is something that is a great value to each and every one of us. And then we need things to do. We have very few activities for children. I think we very underserved the children in this community personally. I think they have some cultural arts center provides some of those things for the kids to do projects and things. And I think we need an athletic type situation where kids, instead of being in front of Nintendos or games, be in front of a basketball or a softball or have other opportunities beyond that. But I would definitely be against doing away with the cultural arts center.
I'm going to agree. I think the Cultural Arts Center is an absolute gem in our community. It's something that,
Can you please speak up, because over here we've got the outside noise.
it's something that we've already budgeted for. I think it's an absolute gem in our community. And I think it's a great step in the direction of building our community. Like to echo what Richard said about quality of life. You know, we need to create ways to provide things for people to do here. You know, we've got a large senior community. We want to attract more families. Investing in things like this is the way we're going to do that moving forward. I think what we have to do is continue to vary our business growth and diversify the way we raise revenue in our community, so that we don't have to go back to the homeowner as basically the sole taxpayer every time we want to add something. Every time we grow, we need to build a new fire station. And I think this is an example of what we can do when we can find creative ways to raise that revenue, because that's just going to attract more people. We're going to bring in those families that we need. And I would like to see more things like this in the future, so long as we are able to finance them responsibly.
Next. Okay. Well, anyway, when I was a kid,
Sorry.
Time's up.
so when I was a kid, I went to two things: the Boys Club and the YMCA, and they were all nonprofit organizations. So there's plenty of places to have fun, because I used to play all the time, even though I never made varsity or anything. So, but I did play a lot. And so, you know, I want people to have opportunity to do things. Also, I was an auditor, you know, public administrator. And I looked into budgets and looked into, you know, cost and made, you know, proposals and analyzed stuff. So I can't across the board say like, hey, I want to do this and I want to do that, because I think it'd be wrong as a politician or as a candidate, because you don't know what's going to happen until you get there. What the budget looks like, what the spending are, what the priorities are. And I hear from people all the time, hey, I want to lower my taxes and this and that. And one of the things they mentioned earlier was this H2Go thing. We don't want to raise the water rates. Well, it's not going to depend on what they want to do. It's going to depend on the cost of resources, cost of water, the cost of you know, getting things out of the wells, the cost of employees, the cost of everything, doing business. And if it costs more, then, you know, they're going to have to raise the water rates, which they say they won't raise, and I hope they don't. But you know it's going to be raised, water rates. So yeah, I love the Leland Cultural Arts Center. I've never been there myself, you know. I just not where I spend my time, but I think it's a great place to have if we can afford it. Thank you.
So what I do know is that the arts are extremely important to a thriving, growing area. I have used the Cultural Arts Center, whether it's been for the Chamber of Commerce Business Expo. Our VFW held a Korean War Veterans Remembrance event there this year. Also on Veterans Day, there's a Veterans Day breakfast. My grandmother goes there and takes classes. I think it's a fantastic place. I think it's important for the town. I think it's important for the north end of the county to have it. I do know there's some conversation surrounding that it may cost more money to run than it makes. Like Mr. Harmati said, I don't think it's fair to sit up here and say, you know, we're going to do this or I'm going to do that. I will tell you, I have a business background and a business mind, and we'll take a hard look at the budget and make sure our tax dollars are being spent the right way. And if we need to turn a dial here or there or move some decimals around, that's the responsibility of the council. I take that very seriously. Thank you.
So you will answer the next question first.
Okay.
How are you going to get an ABC store in Leland?
So that's the first time I've ever been asked that question, and quite honestly, it's not even on my radar screen. We have 2 ABC stores close. Yes, they're not in Leland, but that's not something that I'm terribly concerned about.
Well, if I could, I think it's about revenue. I think that may be part of, because Belleville gets all the revenue from those ABC stores.
Sure. To be completely honest, I don't know what the process is to solicit an ABC store. It's certainly a conversation that we can look at if it makes sense. I'm certainly open to that, but yeah, great.
Next. Who's next?
Hi, I'm next, sorry. The ABC store is on my radar. It's been on my radar for about 2 years when I applied to be on the ABC board for Belleville and realized that both of them were in the town of Belleville and that all of the revenue from that was going to the town of Belleville. I don't have anything against the town of Belleville itself, but the people who by and large are shopping at those ABC stores are Leland residents. When I mentioned earlier that there are other things that we can do to create revenue without raising property taxes, I didn't want to go into it because 90 seconds is not very long to really dive into that, but the ABC stores is one of those ways, and the way you get one is to solicit the state for the ability to open one. A town can't just simply go and open an ABC store, but I would like there to be one because I think that we are missing out on revenue from that, and that our revenue is going to Belleville and filling their coffers instead of our own, and it's one more way that we can have revenue coming in without going back to the taxpayers and saying, we're raising the property taxes.
Well, I'd have to say, I told somebody last night, that's the first meeting I've been to, and I've had about 20 or 30 meet and greets, that the audience didn't have a question about the ABC board. So I have gotten pretty tuned into that. Belleville last year made $350,000 off their two ABC stores. Is a very politically climate with that. Not just at the local level of going through our representatives in the southern part of the county or going to our representatives at the state. It's a very heated subject, and there has to be some amendments made to make that happen. But I think there's a good chance over the next 2 or 3 years we can move in the direction of getting an ABC store, because all of our people and our restaurants are having to buy it in Belleville. Now, the people in Brunswick Forest, they buy theirs in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Everyone ever told me. We just go to South Carolina and buy ours. But it certainly would be a lot more convenient to buy it here. But I think the ABC store is a very important topic. I think we should work diligently to do the things and to get our council people, as far as representatives in the southern part of the county, in agreement with that, and move forward and take something to the state so we could have our own ABC store.
No, I agree. I think this has to be part of the plan for diversifying our revenue. This is a huge revenue stream we're missing out on entirely. I think one of the challenges we're going to face in getting it is going to be a geographic issue. We're never going to get greenlit to open an ABC store across the street from Belleville.
No.
So we've got, the old Leland section now is basically locked down by Belleville. We've got one smack in the middle of 17. So as we grow, we're going to have to find somewhere where we're going to put that thing. And that's going to be what it takes as we move our contiguous boundaries to convince the state, because they're never going to let us put them a few hundred feet apart. But this is hugely important. I mean, that money that Richard was talking about, that's half of the operating cost of the Leland Cultural Arts Center right there. I mean, we are talking about a very, very substantial amount of money. That's a penny in property taxes for the entire community, just from operating a liquor store. And again, that gives our businesses a chance to purchase from there. So we have to prioritize it. And one of the advantages I think we face as a growing community is that we're getting big enough that people have to listen to us. We're not a small town that doesn't have a voice. We're a massive voting bloc. We demand results. Every one of these events I've come to has been standing room only. You don't see that in a lot of municipalities. So if we want our ABC store, we're gonna get it, but it might take some time, and it's gonna take some pretty die-hard lobbying at the town and the county level. But it's gotta be on our radar, because that is like the ultimate low-hanging revenue for us to reach out and grab to move our community forward.
Well, I think everyone's hit it right on the nail. We do need to get some revenue. Going back a little bit on the ABC store, Belleville is not a good neighbor. They've always given Leland hell all the years I've been here, 20 years. And they're not about to give up any one of those ABC stores, which I think they should. They're a little town, they're taking all the money, it's not right. They don't even maintain their own roads in Belleville. I don't know what they did with their money. And Leland's being shortchanged. And like Richard said, I believe, that, you know, I'm not sure which of the gentlemen, but yeah, you have to get state approval, and they're not gonna allow to have 3 stores here so close together. So, and we'd have to lobby like hell to, you know, get one, and I don't know how you're gonna get it. The Belleville is not gonna give none of theirs up. I think they should. I don't think they deserve it. Most of our people go there and they get revenue from us, and like, I think, I don't know who said, Richard, that we should, you know, we could use that money for the Cultural Arts Center, which is a great idea. So, yeah, I would work like hell, I think every one of us up here, try to get some kind of ABC store and get some kind of fairness into, you know, getting some of that money that we're spending in with Belleville. It's not right.
Mr. Harmati, next question to you.
Okay.
First, I would like to know how many town council meetings each candidate has attended this year.
Okay. Well, actually, because of the COVID, I haven't attended any. I don't even know if you could get in for a long time, but I can tell you this. I've been attending council meetings in Leland since 2012. So I think longer than any of these gentlemen, because I don't know if they've been here with 2012. But yeah, I've attended a lot of meetings, and also I speak before the council. I've spoken many times. You can probably run the cameras on it and see what I talked about. And I also speak before the Brunswick County Board of, not Brunswick, Brunswick School Board. In fact, I was there, I know that's not the question, but I was there last month talking about responsibilities of the school board with their constitutional responsibilities. And this month, next week, I'm going to talk to them about educating the soul. You know, you educate the body, mind, and soul. So yeah, I'm always around talking, and I will be if I win this election or not. And I will be talking to Leland Town Council, and so I'll continue to talk at the Brunswick School Board. So I've been doing this since 2012. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I haven't kept count on how many meetings I've gone to. I can tell you at the last council meeting, I was the only person in attendance. If I had to give you a number, I'd say in the last year, minus when I was stuck in Jamaica.
Who are you?
I'm stuck in a hotel room at Florida story. Probably been to 8 out of 12. So a regular attendee when this was, I decided this was something I wanted to go after.
I've been to 3, and I also, the council meetings are live streamed for those who don't know, which is great, because if you're at home and you're doing some other things, you're not comfortable going in person, you can live stream those as well. I've also been to some of the WNPO meetings and spoke at the meeting in which they were deciding on whether or not to toll Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, which has got to be the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. So to answer the question, I've been to 3, I've live streamed multiple more, and been to the WNPO meeting.
Over the past 3 years, I'd say I've been to 12 to 15 meetings. I was on the Leland Tourism Authority board for a couple of years and really enjoyed that. That was a great experience. And that's one of the key reasons I'm sitting here now. I really enjoyed that. Enjoyed the involvement of the people, enjoyed being involved in bringing people in from the outside. But there's a lot of information at council meetings. But I can tell you, when you go to one, you can pick any row in the room. They're empty. Unless it's something real controversial, not a lot of people go to the council meetings. I think more people should go, because a lot of the negativism that goes on is simply a misunderstanding, or people not informed at the appropriate level. And I think that's one of the things we've got to do. We've got to inform our taxpayers of what's going on. just like on the sales tax. It's very understandable once you know the details. So going to board meetings is a great idea.
I think in the last year, I've been to 4 or 5, and I live streamed the last one. I had to go to an event, and I made my wife drive home. She was very upset that I was playing the council meeting in the car. But I wanted to make sure, that I was as involved as possible. I was also at the WMPO meeting and spoke out against the toll bridge. I also think it's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. I've attended economic development committee meetings, and one of the things that got me on the radar for running for town council was twice I applied for a position on one of the boards. And I essentially filled out a kitchen sink application. Hey, here's my resume, tell me where you want me. And neither time was I placed on the board. And I was kind of upset about that until I looked at the resumes of the folks that were on there, and I was pretty blown away by the brain trust we have in this community. I mean, we've got 6 people up here that are highly qualified, running for 2 seats on the town council, and it's
Really
even-
only 5. I'm not.
Well, you're right. There is a 6th, but the field's even deeper for some of those boards, and so I think that shows great engagement. But I've worked hard to make sure that I've attended when I can to get the best understanding of what's going on day to day and what really goes into this job.
Okay, next question starts with you. What is your vision for the Gateway District? And what is the Gateway District?
That's a great question. What are we referring to by the Gateway District?
Would you like to clarify that, Mr. Carson, since that was your question?
If you go down the Route 17, the Virgin Diamond, and if you're on Village Road, that's the Gateway District. Now all it is gas stations and food places. But we just found out tonight where they just opened a brewery, don't even know it's even there. And that's gonna draw a lot of people to that area. And now we've got what's called the apartment building right there, which is gonna Harrington Village. It's full. People complain about too many apartments. It's full. It's full before it was even built. And it's basically the Gateway District is that someday we just like to do is like it look like other towns with flower pots and hanging, nice streets and crosswalks, and look like a town.
So what is your vision for
So-
what we now call sort of downtown Leland?
I really wish I had known that was the name of it, because I've been talking about that area a lot lately. I don't think Main Street Leland belongs on 17. And I think we've been kind of moving in that direction because that area is privately owned and we haven't been able to do much with it. I would really like to see us try to build a thriving downtown type area there, whether it's through bringing in someone to work and develop that property or through a public-private partnership. I think we've already started building the pedestrian walkways that interconnect it. I think, Harrington Village, even though that first floor mixed use didn't work, I think moving forward, that's gotta be part of our development plan. So I think that needs to be Main Street Leland, and I think we can develop that into a magnet that will keep our dollars here, because every time somebody wants to go shopping in Leland for anything other than the essentials, they're taking themselves and their dollars over the bridge. And this is an opportunity to keep that money here. It is 10 minutes from downtown Wilmington. Everybody on that side of Wilmington will be coming here. And we can start to pull those folks that are going to places like Charlotte, because they've got the Marshalls and the Home Depot and everything, and we can start drawing them that way. And that's just another way to grow our town in a sustainable, smart way, and also generate more revenue. I think that has to be a big focus working forward, but right now, there's not a whole lot we as a town can do aside from encourage, recruit, and, prod them as best we can.
Yeah, I had a clarifying question before I answer that. Now, that area you're talking about, is that the area near where the Circle K is, and that area that looks,
No.
where is that?
Wrigley,
Where?
Wrigley, and McDonald's.
17.
McDonald's?
Yeah.
Ace
Village Road.
Ace Hardware.
Yeah, well, that's Village Road in there.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. But by the way, one thing I want to mention is around Circle K, there's little development. There's near where Belleville Town Hall is, but in this area. That was the worst area for 20, 30 years. Actually, it used to be a prostitution thing over there and many other things. Really, really bad area. Now they cleaned it all up. That was before you guys got here. And, but yeah, we should have a nice district, nice downtown Leland district. And like everyone said, that we could keep $1 here. And also we should look toward bringing in like a Lowe's. I mean, we're big enough in here, all the developments, and, you know, we're growing towards Myrtle Beach, that we should be able to sustain Lowe's, you know, not as a food store, but I'm talking about a hardware store. I mean, so we need that. I think those things would help keep $1 here. They would also generate, you know, tax revenue for us, along with that development on Village Road, and then also, as we talked about already, with ABC stores. So we need to do more to open businesses, small businesses, bigger businesses, and all these things to bring in more revenue to support things we like the Cultural Arts Center.
I think it's important to note that it takes vision to change a town. And I think if you look at what Village Road was 10 years ago to what it is today, we're starting to see that vision come to fruition. You've got Harrington Village, which it may have been a little ahead of its time. History's going to tell us that. Answer, I don't know if it is or isn't. But it is full. The shops are being filled up. We got to start giving people a reason to want to walk the Gateway District. And we're starting to see that. We've got Brody's Hot Dogs, we've got a boutique in there, we've got the New Brunswick Beer Exchange that opened.
Sorry.
It's okay.
But still got over it.
It takes time. It's not gonna happen overnight, but I think the town has laid out a good vision on what they want that to become. But that's part of the challenge of growth, is planning it out, managing it, and properly executing it. It's not gonna happen overnight, but I think we're on the right path.
Nick.
I think that one thing that Leland lacks is some sort of a downtown or a community center, or we're never gonna have 70 city blocks of downtown like Wilmington. And I'm not asking for Leland to become that, but you know, some little Main Street USA. Highway 17 is not a good place for Main Street USA. One of the many reasons why I wanted to run for council was because I don't feel like our city is walkable enough. It's not bikeable enough. You have to drive everywhere. There is very little interconnectivity, and that's not the fault of the town. That's the way that it was developed by developers and private entities, and the way that they chose to expand. Village Road used to be the main drag, which is why everything was built along there, until Waterford and Magnolia Greens was brought to existence, and everything was brought out that direction. As far as what my vision would be for that area, I think that is one of our opportunities to have sort of a downtown space. You can walk along, get out of your car, park along the street, walk along the shops. I think Harrington Square was very unfortunate that I think due to COVID was really the issue. When we look at commercial spaces in Leland and why we don't have things like restaurants, I know some people feel like we can't support them. I disagree with that. Most restaurateurs do not own the buildings that they rent. Most people who have a small business do not own. They rent the space, and there's very little of those spaces to go into in Leland right now. If you look in the commercial MLS, and Harrington Square, I think, was a missed opportunity that's unfortunately being converted into more apartment space now. But that doesn't mean that we can't do more things in the future. It doesn't mean that we can't convert that. The biggest challenge with that district is that all of that land is primarily owned by one individual, and they are pretty stuck in their ways with what they want it to be at the moment. So those are some relationships we'll have to build and some conversations we'll have to have.
Well, I think we're growing at such a pace that that area is going to have to be a big part of the plan for the future. And I grew up in Farmville, North Carolina. It had a great little downtown. And probably y'all never heard of Farmville, North Carolina. We're all town with 2,000 people. But we went downtown. For Saturday morning, we go downtown and have breakfast. But I just think by the way, there was for the Founders Park, about a $500,000 grant just issued. More recreational use of that, a splash pad, things to help bring the kids back and get them enjoying that. But I think it's a lot of work to do. Again, I agree, there's been a good start. The challenge is simply Mr. Dale. It's the biggest challenge. he owns all the land, and he owns most of the facilities. He doesn't sell anything, he leases everything. And we need to try to get him to have a change of heart, and let's spruce it up a little bit, block by block, until we can have work downtown that people from Wilmington want to drive across and be a part of. So I think the opportunity is there, the land obviously is there, and we really need to work toward that. And I think the town council realizes that, they've done what they can, but one day it's gonna be really nice.
Next question to you, Richard. Two-part question. Do you believe our elections have been fair and not rigged? And are you willing to accept the people's choice as determined by the election?
You talking about this election right here?
Just a general question.
No, I do not necessarily believe the elections have been rigged. I think there may be some inequalities from place to place, possibly, I don't know. But my opinion is we have to look forward, not backwards. We have to set the stage for the future. And, confirming that that is the case going forward is something that I think all of us would like to see. I mean, the last thing that I want to think is that my vote doesn't count. As I tell people, I tell my kids, I said, look, your vote counts. You need to go vote. No matter what you feel about any topic or any subject, go vote. And don't vote Democrat or Republican. Vote for the person you want. Vote for somebody that you like to see win. When I go to the ballot box, I vote for people. I vote for what I think they can do for the community. And I just think that's really important to take. There's so much politics in our society, I can't stand it on either. And you know who's wrong? The Democrats and the Republicans. They're both wrong. And we really got to come together from that standpoint. And I think voting is the way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, our elections are not rigged. I think we need to do what we can to expand access on a local, state, and national level. I think part of that is making sure people know what they're voting for when they're voting, hosting events like this. A lot of this responsibility falls on individuals and groups, whether they be political parties, non-political parties, neighborhoods, whatever. Yes, I will accept the results of the election no matter what they be. But like I said, I really got involved in politics due to Bush v. Gore, so I will make a ton of hanging Chad and recount jokes. It's coming. But no, I think making sure that, folks feel heard and that we don't disenfranchise people is so important. We're in such a hyper-partisan environment, and I thought, not only was I excited to try to run a campaign that set an example for people how I thought they should be conducted, I was also terrified of running for office after 2020. I have legitimate fears. I make sure my doors are locked. I had to put the Star News asked for my home address, and I gave it to them, and I was really upset about it, and I was worried. And that's wrong. We shouldn't be afraid to run for office. We shouldn't be afraid to vote. We shouldn't be afraid to talk to our neighbors about who we're voting for. And I've been so thrilled by what I've seen from the candidates in this election. I mean, we've all conducted ourselves with grace and dignity and kindness. I mean, you saw us sitting up here talking and joking. I mean, there's none of these candidates I wouldn't welcome in my home and wouldn't want to serve with on the town council, and that's a remarkable thing. And that really shows me that Leland's in good hands, no matter what happens. And, the fact that I can see this kind of involvement a few days before an election speaks volumes to this community and where we're going. So I thank you all for being here.
Who's next?
You.
I didn't know you jumped.
Always talk after the person next to you.
Well, I don't know how to answer that question. I was born in a communist country. I've spent the first 10 years of my life in a socialist communist country. We came over to America in 1956. We escaped over the Iron Curtain for freedom and liberty. I heard about America all my life as a little kid. One of the things I used to say when I was a kid at 6 years old is, give me freedom, give me liberty, give me death. We had a Hungarian poet that said that. So did Patrick Henry in 1741. He made that speech at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. So, one of the things we know about communist socialists, where I came from, is, you know, they cheat. Now, I'm not saying anything about this election. I have studied election issues, and I'm not an expert at it, so I'm not gonna comment on it. And I know there's effort going on election integrity, which I think we should have election integrity so we can all trust it. And I do believe that everybody gets to vote. I know there's a lot of talk about, and I forgot the term now. What was it you guys said about, every vote counts? I think I've seen a lot of elections. I've participated in a lot of them. I've ran for office 3 other times, and I also when I ran for 2012 for NC House, this was a total Democratic district, this District 18. And I had to go to all the Democrats to get elected because I was running as a Republican, And so, and I did that. I went to all the black communities and everything. I focused on them more than anybody because I knew I couldn't get elected without them. And so, and I saw how the election was going on. I was at the polls, and everybody got to vote. I didn't see anybody disenfranchised. I resent that term. People say that. Everybody has a chance to vote, and I think everybody does vote. Thank you.
I will tell you, I've been all over the world. I've been in war zones. This is the greatest country on earth, period, end of story. Can we certainly sit back and say, hey, was there some issues with elections? Maybe, I don't know. But the people spoke, and there was a result. And what some of, I think Bill highlighted, we've got to move forward. We've got to unify. This country, specifically this town and our surrounding areas, this is the opportunity to come together because we're going to grow as one. Yes, Leland's going to grow, Bella's going to grow, and Nevaska's going to grow. But if we work together, the opportunities are greater. I think I have a track record of building those relationships, and I look forward to doing that on the council. I will accept whatever the outcome of this vote is. And I also agree that no matter who gets elected up here, or Ms. Dunlap is not here, I think our town is in pretty good hands. You've got a cadre of folks who care, and who I don't think anybody has a motive other than we want to make sure Leland is as good as it can be moving forward.
Great.
Thank you.
I guess whether or not I think it's rigged depends on the outcome of the election. And if I am elected, it was probably rigged. Yay. We need to joke a little more. Everybody's too serious. I love where I live, and I think that this is an important place. I'm not sure that this is such an important place that somebody cares enough to rig our elections. I don't think that it's rigged. I think that, no. I mean, I agree with what some of the others said. Election integrity is important. I'm fine with those processes happening if it makes people feel more reassured in the process, because people should. We should be able to trust in the process. If we cannot trust in the process, that's where we start having a big problem. But as far as locally is concerned here in Leland, I'm glad to be a part of this process. I'm glad that everybody else has been so fantastic in this, and thank you guys for coming, not just to say that, but it's really impressive I've been at prior council meetings and nobody's there. Mr. Gaber on the end made a comment of being the only one there. I've been to meetings where I'm the only one there, and it's kind of sad because you go on Nextdoor and you see people complain. There's nothing wrong with complaining, but if you're going to complain, you need to also offer solutions, and you need to be a part of the solution. So when I go to these forums and I see a packed house like the last one we had, and it was standing room only, and same here, incredible, and makes me feel good that I live in a community where people really care about their futures. They care about what people have to say, and they want to be involved in the process. So I love that, and vote for Nicholas.
Okay, so I am out of questions for Card, so I'm going to ask some of my own questions. So I personally have observed in the past big based on what happened with H2Go and based on what happened with other issues, some adversarial relationships between the town of Leland, the town of Belleville, and Brunswick County, and Navassa. And I would like each of you to talk about how you think you can address that. And I'm gonna start with Nick, since he was the last person.
It's like the fourth time I've gone first.
All right, not enough.
No, it's fine. I'm fine. There has been a lot of contention in the past. I don't really want to spend a bunch of time talking on that because we can't change what we've already done. We can only change what we do going forward. And whether things happened, should have or shouldn't have happened, they've happened, and we are where we are today. With that being said, I agree with Jason in the fact that we will get further working together than we will get trying to push against each other. And that's been maybe one of the biggest struggles of our town growing over the past decade or two, is our relationships with the surrounding communities. I think large in part, what is good for Leland is also good for Belleville, and what is good for Belleville is good for people in Leland. And I think working together, whether it's Belleville or Navassa or with Brunswick County, is really what we want to try to do. Of course, my first and foremost concern is always with the town of Leland. So if it comes down to a decision-making process, and there's something that I feel or residents are bringing up to me that is going to maybe benefit residents of Leland, but may not benefit the county as a whole, that's where my priorities are going to lie. But I think large in part our priorities can be one and the same. And I would like to really see us reaching across the aisle and working on things together, because working together as a whole is going to get us a lot further than if we're constantly having to fight with our neighbors.
Okay, I'm gonna answer that with a question. I am real sensitive about this. Leland, Navassa, Belleville need to be one town. How many of you can go throughout this area and know whether you're in Navassa, Leland, or Belleville? Not a person in the room. I'm not sure the commissioners can. And the point is, they spend so much time and money bickering. And it's time for the citizens to stand up and say, look, we can be a good city as Leland. We can be a great city as Northern Brunswick County. We can be a great city. And there's great opportunity for that. People, and I don't want to say, people are jealous of what's already been done in Leland. And it's time for us to take our thoughts and our differences and set them behind us and bring people around the table and get somebody to facilitate. And that's what I've done most of my career in building a pretty good sized business, is facilitating 350 people. It's hard, and it takes time, and it takes patience. But the county's involved in that too. I mean, do y'all know that H2Go, who supplies our water now, sold all their assets to Belleville for $10 one night before the commissioners were changing hands? I darn sure wouldn't vote for somebody who's in on that deal, ever. So my point is, we need to get together. We need to get the right people involved. And I tell you, the county and Leland have great potential, but together they have enormous potential.
Yeah, I think, it's important to recognize that as communities, towns, counties, the state, we're separate entities. We have different priorities. We're not always going to agree. But when we work together, we're all going to do better. And we need to start focusing on the common ground and ways that we can work together to grow our communities in the right way. I don't know if we'll ever be able to sell the three towns and their councils on some sort of merger. I'm not that optimistic. But, we need to all be on the same side.
Yeah.
There's no reason to try to destroy each other or to take things, and that's that's unacceptable behavior. One of the advantages that we're facing right now is no matter the outcome of this election, you're going to have 2 new council members in Leland. I've already been approached by Belleville commissioners saying, "Oh, I hear you're running. If you get elected, I hope we can work towards a better relationship." So I think Leland isn't the only group that's ready to see us move forward. And I think, if we can bury that hatchet, we can start working together. And we just need to, to make it known that we have so much in common that we can find, that we can work together, that when we don't agree, it doesn't need to go nuclear. It doesn't need to become such a massive issue. It's okay that our interests compete, but we need to see where they don't, and that's where we need to focus to move us forward. You're next.
Yeah, I would have a dream like Richard has. It'd be nice, really, if we all one community. The problem with that is that, power structure is one problem. The other major problem is actually each city or town has its own charter. And, it's given from the state, so it's kind of hard to merge. And I'm not sure what the process would be to do that. I don't think they would want to do it because everybody wants to have their little power structure, and I do know the mayor of Belleville, Mike, and I know Mayor Sappho has nothing to do with Leland area and Navassa, and I know all these people and a bunch of board of basic, county commissioners. So yes, we all need to work together. One of the subjects I taught at Shaw University was intergovernmental relations, which dealing with different governments, different entities working together. But now with this highly politicized situation, it's hard for towns to work together, especially when they're all competing for the ABC store.
Everybody on the panel has beat this one to death. I think the only thing I can add is I have a demonstrated track record of working with different groups and organizations in the area, and my federal service. That's how I was able to do so well in building relationships. We have an opportunity here to kind of wipe the slate clean, if you will, bring everybody to the table and find a way to move forward. And as a member of the Leland Town Council, I vow to you that's what we will do. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna switch it up. Jason's gonna go first, we're gonna come back towards me. So after Jason talks, Mr. Harmati, you're next.
Next step.
The question is, what is the number one thing you're going to address if and when you get elected? What's the first thing, what's your priority to work on?
My priority is getting to work and understanding what needs to be done. I don't think it's right to sit up here and say, this is what I'm gonna tackle and this is what I'm gonna do. But it will be what I've done my whole life, getting to work and doing the work of the people.
I'm next. Well, anyway, I kind of agree with Jason, that, yeah, you need to, look at the budget, look at what the city's doing. Since I was an auditor, I have a good understanding, not a good understanding of it, but I would be able to know how to look into it and evaluate it and see where the priorities should be. Of course, I think we all agree that growth is a major issue, a serious problem. That's something we want to tackle. Another major issue is the bridge, which is way down the road. It's a big problem. There's no money for it, not even for any kind of bridge we're talking about. DOT can't fund it, probably won't fund it, since they made a big mistake on 2 years ago when they didn't finish their study. Now there's nothing in place to say, hey, look, these are the one bridge, this is the two bridges, this is our concept, and when the money does come down either from state or federal government with this, what do they call it, the money on the infrastructure, we're not in place to even get any of that money. That's the sad part. Thank you.
One of the things about being on the council is understanding that you're only one vote on a panel of 5. So there's no point in promising some sweeping result. It's just something that's not going to happen. So outside of learning the job, I think the first thing I would want to focus on is communication and outreach. I think the current council and the town staff is working really hard to improve that in every way they can, and I think they're ready to hear fresh ideas. I think, should I be elected, I'm somebody who grew up in the social media generation. I understand what it's like to be so bombarded with information and have to sift through it and to kind of help guide effective communication. as, you know, this COVID crisis hopefully begins to subside more, I'd like to see more outreach, more town hall type events to make the community more informed. Because I think it was, you know, Richard said it earlier, that a big source of so much of the anger and resentment amongst the community is often a misunderstanding of how things are done or of the job of the council. And I think if we can work to educate the town on how it works and to create opportunities to ask those questions and to lay out, you know, this is the agenda for the next meeting. This is what this agenda means. This is what we're talking about, you know. If you're concerned about X, Y, and Z, you need to come to this one. I can't tell you how many meetings I went to this year where folks signed up for public comment to talk about that roundabout. And it was long decided, and they were so frustrated because they knew it was coming, they wanted to be heard, and they just missed the boat on the discussion. And I think we can find creative ways to avoid that. And I think that's just something that requires, you know, fresh ideas and enthusiasm for it, because we're on our way. I think we just need to kind of fine tune it and make sure everybody feels included, nobody doesn't feel hurt.
I think the most important thing for me is to see that we stay ahead of the curve on our infrastructure and our traffic. We can very easily get trapped in places in these communities, whether it's turning right at no right turn at Waterford, or whether it's the new traffic circle down here. But I think it's important for us to make sure our roads, our parks, all these things are kept up and kept in good shape, so when we do have another subdivision coming in, we're prepared for it. And getting more roadways, like most of you probably know, K Todd Road is already in the budget to get paved from the water tower all the way up to Highway 17. And guess what? You can go across K Todd and turn right or turn left without doing a turnabout. So for a lot of people in Brunswick Forest, because I travel it 3 or 4 times a day going to the house of pickleball, but you're going to be able, that's going to be a great egress point. Also, this road going straight across here is going to cross the railroad track, we'll go to K Todd, it's going to then go down to Hewlett-Burton, and you'll be able to go to Circle K without leaving the neighborhood. So I think keeping ourselves prepared so that we don't have the problems with traffic that you see in other places. And anybody that came from New York cannot complain about traffic in other places. Washington, yeah, that's even worse.
If you're from New York, you get to complain about everything.
That's right. You got it. That's right. That's right.
There's 2 things I want to do on day one. The first is not going to happen on day one. It's going to take a long time, but I want to meet everybody on the town staff. There's over 130 of them. I want to meet them. I want to know who they are. I want them to know who I am. In business, a lot of great ideas come from your employees. I'd like to talk to the town staff and, you know, see what ideas, and it's a great resource, I think, that we can have. The other thing that I want to do that can happen within the first few days is Miss Pat Battleman is over here joining us tonight.
She moved over there.
Oh, now she's over here. Hi. How'd you do that? That's impressive. That's impressive. You know, no matter what you might think of Pat Battleman, I say this nicely. I like you, but I've heard, you know, you get in this process and people say, you know what, I'm glad to hear you're running for town council, but I'm also, I'm sorry you're running for town council, because they know it can be ugly and everybody has an opinion. You're never going to make anyone happy, or everyone happy rather. But one thing that I know that everybody can really congratulate her on is being on the advisory for the WMPO. And she's done a great job on that, and so thank you. Where I wanted to go with that, though, is with her absence now on that council, if the council would have me, I would love to try to fill her shoes, so to speak. That's something I'm very passionate about. The bridge not being tolled is something I'm very passionate about. There is nothing unique to our area that we need to be the only place in this state that pays for a bridge with a toll.
Okay, let's talk about development. I hear a lot of my neighbors talking about the development that's been going on in Leland and not being happy about it. So can you each talk about the development and what your thoughts are? And we'll start with you, Mr. Harmati, and then come back around this way, and
You talk about new development? that's
just
gonna
how
come up?
development is being managed right now.
Well, part of the development, well, let me say something.
Let me
about
just
the-
say growth, maybe that would
Growth,
be
yeah.
appropriate. How we're
We've been
managing
talking about growth. I think everybody, all of us agree growth is the biggest issue, biggest problem facing us. And now, I want to mention two things. I've heard twice by people saying toll bridge. You know, I've been studying this toll bridge. I've talked to the people that are involved with it in Wilmington and other places. Actually, people that, NCDOT. And there's never been only a toll bridge. That's a misinformation. I don't know where everybody's talking about that. There's only gonna be one bridge, there's gonna be a free bridge. Gotta either replace the one we have, they'll go one right next to it. And if there's a second bridge, as it comes to be, the government, NCDOT state can't afford a second bridge. And we probably will not need a second bridge because we don't have the growth, the shipping growth that would require it, because we have, South Carolina, a port there in Charleston, we got one more at City, and we don't have enough shipping to validate another port, another bridge. But if we did, then that would be a private, public partnership would be a toll. But for the average citizen, you'd have a free bridge just like we do now. So I want everybody to understand, there's never gonna be a toll bridge that we have to pay for. As far as the growth, I don't have enough time to, how much time I have left?
36 seconds.
How much?
36 seconds.
Okay, good. So, yeah, the growth is the biggest issue, normally it appears as, what happens is we have, a planning committee, which I think, Jason's on, and, he should know about that. The town plans how things are developed. The developer, submits the plat to the town. It's the town's responsibility to review it and evaluate and determine if they meet the specifications of the town planning board, and all the things we want in the community. Let's vote. Is that it?
Oh, sorry.
So, growth is obviously the biggest issue facing our community moving forward. I mean, it's probably what I've spent 90% of my time talking about since I started running for office. The growth is coming. What we can do is manage it and try to take advantage of the fact that everybody wants to move here, everybody wants to open here. Leland is open for business. And what I would like to see us do moving forward is to vary our growth in a way that allows us to grow in a healthy manner. I would like to see an increase in workforce housing. And when I say workforce housing, what I mean are more affordable options for purchase for, folks in our community, our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers. They're very rapidly getting priced out of purchasing in the community they serve. I also think by increasing this workforce housing, we can attract a dynamic workforce. I know there were some companies that have looked at Leland in the past, and they loved everything about it, but for the lack of the skilled workforce that they needed. So if we can kind of create, we can fill that vacuum with the promise of that American dream to come here and own a home. Home ownership is the largest driver of wealth in the United States. If we can increase that, whether it comes in the form of single-family homes, townhomes, some condos, we can build the community and attract those employers, which will further diversify our revenue. That'll help attract, those restaurants that we all want, those businesses that we all want, and allow us to grow to something other than a bedroom community. I think there's a real risk there that we will just wind up as a sprawling suburb if we don't take deliberate action to increase these kinds of options for people. And I think, one of the reasons I chose Leland was because I could afford to purchase a home here. I was 35 years old before I owned a house. I never thought that was gonna happen, but that's the reality for so many people in my generation. The single-family homes of the past, those 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes, they don't exist anymore, and they're in such a small quantity. Here in Leland, they're now in the 300s as well.
A very distinguished person in the community, I had lunch with him yesterday, he's in Leland. He said, don't be surprised if you see the day that Wilmington is a suburb of Leland. That was his comment, he was serious.
Wow.
He said, because we have so much land and so much opportunity here, they have none there. Growth is our biggest challenge, but growth is also our greatest opportunity. Now let's talk for a moment about what would happen if we quit growing. Okay, we have $9.25 million a year in revenue from property taxes. Okay, we have $7.75 million in sales and use tax. That's amazing that's that close to our property. That's where people are shopping to pay the sales tax. Fire fees are about $4 million. That's 85% of our revenue. If we started going backwards instead of forward, I can tell you the expenditures will continue to go up and the taxes are going to go up if we don't grow. But I'm interested in commercial and industrial development. We have Leland Innovation Park out here on 74, I-140 and 74, shovel ready to build. Complete internet access, all kinds of access. So we really need to move toward getting those businesses because Waterford's already filled up. So moving out to that park is a great opportunity. I want to see younger families come to Leland. We're going to all be in that senior center one day out there. We need some young people to come fill our shoes. So I think it's real important that we get young families here. And we need help with the school systems to get that.
Okay, as far as the bridges, I just want to say real quick, so we've got 2 bridges that connect us to Wilmington. They talked about building a third, they talked about bulldozing houses in Brunswick Forest to build this 3rd bridge. What a horrible idea. I don't live here, but why would you tear apart the most expensive community here? Silly. The Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, which is the one that you would use maybe for going downtown, but not if you're going to go to Wrightsville Beach, is what they've talked about tolling. That was a public-private partnership. And they wanted to replace that bridge. A private company approached the state and said, we know you don't have any funds set aside to build this bridge, and we want to build it for you, and then we're going to charge you. And if you come from the north, you know that once a toll happens, it doesn't ever go away. I do not see what makes us unique or special, that we have to be the only bridge in the state of North Carolina to ever be constructed in this way. There are roads with less cars traveling per day that cost more to build than the bridge will cost to be replaced that have been funded. There's no excuse. Well, with the 25 seconds I have left, the town is going to grow.
You have a whole minute.
Oh, do I? Oh, good. Okay, wonderful. Well, here we are filling time. The town is going to grow. Whether you want to see that or not, it's going to happen. So the question isn't, do we want it to grow, do we not want to grow? It's, let's manage that growth in a way that makes sense for everyone, in a way that's efficient, in a way that involves interconnectivity. We subsidize a lot of developments in this town to be built. I don't have an issue with that, but we also need to be subsidizing commercial development. Whether that looks like approaching developers and letting them know what we want to see. I understand a town cannot control what is built on a piece of land, but we can court developers, we can change, create a special zoning district for them, we can do things like do part of the infrastructure, do the landscaping, change the parking lot requirements. There's lots of things that we can do as a town to help control what our future is going to look like. And I think that is part of the plan that needs to be with our growth.
Yes.
You did good.
I've had the privilege of serving on the planning board for a little over a year now. We talked earlier about Harrington Square, and I alluded to the fact that it's something, somebody had a vision, and it takes time for that vision to come to fruition. I can tell you, without divulging anything inappropriately, the commercial stuff is coming. The workforce housing is coming. The town, I think, has done the best job that it can, getting us to this point. And I think, Richard, you made a point without even knowing it. It's time to get some younger folks in there who are going to be here for another 50 or 60 years. No offense to anybody in this room or the town can't dictate who buys a piece of land and what they do with it. But the town can dictate is the zoning, does the zoning and the use match? Are the streets planned for properly? Are the ingress and egress taken care of? Are the traffic studies done? And I think if you pay attention to the planning board, it's a public meeting. The minutes are out there. The planning board isn't a rubber stamp. when something comes before it, we don't just go, yeah, great, perfect, do it. We really take time to scrutinize it and make sure that it is what's best for the town. And I vow to you, as a member of your council, I will continue to do that work to make sure we are planning appropriately and making sure this place is the best that it can be.
Since everybody's been so good about keeping to their time limits, I think we have time for 2 questions from the audience. If anybody in the audience has any questions, raise your hand. I don't see any.
Yeah,
Oh, wait, that, oh.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
stand up, please, so that, yeah.
Hi, my name is Veronica Billington, and I'm a resident here in Brunswick Forest. And my question is, in regards to the planning and growth that we've been speaking of, I'm concerned about with the growth, the constant issuing of sewer hookups. We're running out of water. Developers are building and building and building. We are running out of clean water to drink in this country, and especially in this area. We need to be a little bit more restrictive, perhaps, and less, in other words, it's the developers, when they come in, we need to dictate to them, not them dictate to us. And if we're gonna run out of water, we need to start looking into that and being a little bit more conscientious about the permits that we issue.
Can you put that in the form of a question?
Who issues the water permits and what kind of investigating do you do as far as limits? Are there
Okay.
limits to that?
So the question is, who issues the water permits and what does that process entail? Is that about right?
Yeah, something similar to that.
Okay, we're gonna start with Mr. Harmati.
Okay. Well, it looks like to me that since Leland turned over to H2Go the sewer system, which is water and sewer, and H2Go will be responsible for that. And I'm glad that's a good question, because none of us probably thought about it. Yeah, with all this growth, eventually the water supply is gonna be run out, because H2Go only has 2 wells, and I don't know how much capacity that can provide. The other issue is, will Leland continue to annex all these new developments? Is it the right thing to do? That's something we have to think about. You know, is it fair for Leland to annex all these developments and to pay for the roads or whatever it is that we're I guess, supporting them, even though we might not pay for it. And should Brunswick County, you know, should they stay in Brunswick County, which in that case, they would use Brunswick County water, which their water comes out of the river, and it's unlimited. It's not as good water as the well water, but then we wouldn't have to fight about water. So there, we would be operating like Belleville. You know, we're protecting our own interest, right? Thank you.
So I really think this is a
No, sorry.
I think he forfeits his turn.
I hear
No,
you,
we-
right? Our job is to listen, so I appreciate you bringing that up. I think if we look back before Gen X came on the scene, we had a fair supply of water. We, as a town, aren't gonna solve a global issue of a water shortage, or a potential water shortage down the road. Is it something we need to pay attention to? Yes. But I think our town leadership saw the Gen X issue pop up, they took it and they ran with it. They built or are in the process of building a reverse osmosis system so that we do have clean water, that we don't have to rely on the county. I think that's one. The other piece of the puzzle there is that history is going to tell us whether this interlocal agreement was the right move or not. I don't know. But what it does is give us clean, drinkable water, which we need to sustain our growth.
I can't see you, so I'm gonna stand up real quick. Thank you for your question. You know, H2Go is who is in charge of the water here. I invite you to go to one of their meetings because they're very informative. The H2Go, any entity in North Carolina that supplies water with a charter. Much like the town of Leland has a charter to operate as a town, H2Go has a charter to operate its facilities. They have permits in order to pull water from the ground, and I think you'll be happy to know that there is much more water in there than is pulled out on a daily basis. But while we're talking about water, I'm going to mention Gen X because that's one of the biggest issues that we've faced environmentally. And as Mr. Gaver said, history will tell us if this was the right choice or not, but I think any choice that results in us ending with a reverse osmosis plant where every ounce of water supplied to your home is as free from Gen X as it possibly can be is the right choice. We know that unfortunately Gen X is toxic even in EPA acceptable amounts, even when we measure it in parts per trillion, which is a little bit scary. So anything that we can do to remove that from our water is great. As far as development is concerned, yes, I would prefer for Leland to be calling the shots rather than developers, but when we look at the growth of Leland, a lot of the growth of Leland has come through annexation. And these are developments, like Compass Point as an example, is not in the town of Leland. Compass Point uses our facilities, they use our first responders, they use our roads, they use everything that you and I pay for, and they do not pay into our property taxes. So sometimes the town has to work with these developers and create some partnership where maybe we pay, as we just recently did, to a development by D.R. Horton. We paid them a little over $100,000 to put in some infrastructure, but after 3 years of property taxes, we will make that all back. And every year after that, it will be extra money from the town that we would not have gotten otherwise. And those people are using our resources, now they're paying to use them. So sometimes you gotta really look into it, look into the details, but 9 times out of 10, it's something that makes sense.
I tell you, Leland is pretty strict on building and zoning, and I experienced it firsthand as I built the house at Pickleball Road off K Todd Road. And we spent about $200,000 more than I knew we shouldn't be having to spend. And I argued my point to them, to the town manager, and we spent it because that was the only choice we had. So Leland does take a firm hand. But Leland also has to deal with the county indirectly because the county zoning laws are much lessened and much less painful on the developers. The only real advantage we have there is by state law, counties cannot build or maintain roads. So that's the upper hand that Leland has as far as annexing and bringing other people in. But I think that the developers, for the most part, I think do a good job. Like I said, they pay more to build here than they do anywhere else. And the example he made, there have been 2 or 3 other examples, and I've talked with management about that. And in each case, they paid back the money, the property taxes in 3 years, in 4 different situations. And going forward, those monies are going into the Leland coffers. The other thing I want to say, Leland is very, very strong financially. We could weather most any type of storm that would come our way right now. I mean, to the tune of being significantly greater than what's required by the local government commission. The other towns in our area are not as fortunate with the local government commission. So I think Leland's done a great job of managing the resources, and it's going to pay off for us down the road.
Now you can talk.
That was my time. I was waiting until somebody gave me permission. So having clean, safe drinking water and enough for everyone is an absolute non-negotiable. The next issue becomes how do we keep it affordable? And this question really is in the purview of H2Go. I'm of the opinion that somebody put those pollutants in the water and they should be the ones paying to take them out. Now, how we go about that, I don't know that that's gonna come from the town of Leland. We can use our voices and our voting blocks, and we can make all kinds of noise about it. Because this is something that, this isn't gonna be solved at a local level with reverse osmosis plants. I mean, this is like a catastrophic Superfund level environmental catastrophe that has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed quickly. One of the concerns with, worrying about things like whether we'll have enough water when we agree to these developments is that if we don't and we push back, You know, a lot of this property is not already annexed into the town of Leland, and they're gonna wind up like Compass Point. They're gonna build it anyway, and they're gonna drive on our roads, they're gonna, you know, use our facilities, they're gonna shop at the other guy's ABC store, and they're not gonna pay anything in, they're not gonna pay that vehicle fee. We're going to see none of the benefits of that development and all of the trappings of it. So we can work to stay ahead. And that, I think, is the biggest thing we can do on all levels of infrastructure, not just water. We need to be prepared for what's coming. We don't need to be building things just for today. We need to be building them for 25, 50, 75 years into the future. Because, you know, with stormwater management, roads, traffic patterns, all of our infrastructure, if it's not planned that far ahead, in 10, 15, 20 years, we're gonna be desperately trying to catch up. So that needs to be our focus as a town, is how are we going to stay ahead of the game so we're not left cleaning up a mess from 20 years ago. You know, I don't wanna have the opportunity to serve on this and then have them cursing my name in a generation because I didn't plan for it. You know, and I think that has to be part of how we look at it. Where is this water coming from and how are we gonna control it?
Okay, I'm gonna give you each 90 seconds for closing remarks. We're gonna start with Jason and move to your left.
Can I ask one question, please?
Okay, sure.
I'd like to know how the town of Leland passes inspection on homes when they're just not ready. There's nowhere near ready for you to take occupancy, and they've been approved.
Okay. Who wants to be the first one to answer that question?
Sure, I'll jump on that one.
Down the building committee.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question. All I can tell you is that I do believe that our planning, building, inspection, and zoning folks do the job that they should do.
No, they do not.
I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying to you is that I think those people are trained. I think they go out and do what they're supposed to do. If there's a discrepancy in what you feel the level of preparedness should be, or the inspection level, then maybe that's something that we need to take a look at from a town perspective. I'm not a builder by trade. I can't speak intelligently about it, but I do think that our town staff takes their job very seriously, and I think they carry it out to the best of their ability.
I can't imagine how.
I hear you.
I can't possibly imagine how. A whole section is like that.
Would anybody else like to answer that question?
Yeah,
or we can-
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
I built $2.5 million worth of property between commercial property and residential property. And, I have seen cases where town of Leland come in and do the inspection and they force the builder in both cases to correct and make it better. So my experience with them has been that they've been very thorough. This was 2.5, 3 years ago, and I've changed since then. But at that time, they were very thorough in making sure they had a quality product at the end.
Well, I live in one of those houses, and they were not even a little thorough. I had 56 things wrong. Is that thorough?
Sir, I think this may be an issue for you to take up individually rather than there's people here who are not responsible for that. And we understand your point, I think it's a valid point. Would anyone else like to comment?
I kind of have a general comment on that because it brings up something else that I've seen. You know, Leland does have very strict building codes and they hold the builders to a high standard. But what I see, when I see issues sometimes, they're occurring during the early phases of building. Whether it's, you know, they're starting to break ground and they haven't addressed the stormwater. And I think that's something that we as a community need to look at. Because you shouldn't have to be digging silt out of a pre-existing backyard because, you know, the proper fencing isn't put up at the start of building. So I think there are some issues in these processes that we have to address moving forward. You know, I'm not an expert, I'm not a builder. You know, I'm an attorney by trade, so I usually hear about these problems after they exist, not beforehand. But I definitely think, you know, you raise a very valid point that there's always going to be issues in those processes, and if we can address them and see, you know, which ones keep popping up, then we're able to take action, and we can distinguish what's a one-off versus what's a consistent problem that the town can step in and possibly regulate to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Good point, Justin, because it's real. And so I truly appreciate that.
Can I comment on something too? comment on these, what the, Bill and Jason said, but I do want to comment on something I think is concerns to all of us. We've been talking about all night. And it's, one thing is the development again. I think, and I thought about this for a long time, even before I even thought about it.
Can we just, we'll finish addressing this question, because I think you had something to say about this particular question. And then in your
Okay,
90-second
all right.
comment, feel free to address that.
It's really hard for any of us to address your specific concerns because we don't know your specific case, and of course, you know, that's probably best brought up with the planning and building department or the inspectors or somebody with the town staff. I think you may be able to get somewhere there. As far as inspections are concerned, what I can tell you is that more recently, Leland has become more stringent on their requirements than Brunswick County. They do require things now to pass inspection that they didn't require before, and that the county does not currently require buildings have to pass those same inspections. Another awesome resource that the town has for people who are building a property or have built a property, if you would like to see what building permits have been pulled for your property, you can go on the Town of Leland's website, you can type in your address, and you can pull up and you can see what permits were pulled, when they passed, if they failed, how many times they failed, what dates they passed. It's very informative. They've done a good job of that. As far as developments are concerned, you know, the town is only part of the equation. The builder is another part of the equation. But I do think the town has made moves, you know, more recently. They do require more than Brunswick County requires. I would like to see us move even further, not so much necessarily with the inspections, but with other things that we're required. I'm really quite tired of seeing land be clear cut entirely. We're in Brunswick Forest, which is a little ironic because I don't know where the forest is. And I live in Mallory Creek in a section called the Pines, but there is no more pines. So, you know, I just say that to say there are building processes. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. We all have room for improvement. I have room for improvement. Everybody here does. The town does. But I would like to see us move that way with, you know, a tree ordinance maybe. Unfortunately, people at our state level are trying to take away the ability from towns to pass tree ordinances and make it retroactive. So if we were to pass it tomorrow, it would be taken away from us. I would like us to start looking at impervious surface area. That relates a lot to stormwater runoff. But the trees do too. The trees absorb thousands of gallons of water a day, and then you're putting all this impervious surface. So there are other materials now that we can build parking lots out of that allow water to penetrate. We can leave more trees, which creates beauty, creates better air, helps protect us from storms, protects from stormwater runoff. And as for the stormwater runoff question itself, that permit is granted from the state of North Carolina, so that's something you would want to, you know, deal with them. But the town of Leland also has been more adamant on sticking developers with silt fencing that's not meeting those requirements. I've watched them send out inspectors in my own neighborhood multiple times to make sure the builders are doing so.
Okay, so you have 90 seconds for your final remarks, starting with Jason, moving to your left.
How long?
90 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, Ms. Levitan, I'd like to thank you for you and your organization for putting this on. I think it's always great when we can get in front of the voters and the residents, so thank you for that. Thank you to everybody that's here. We appreciate this. It's always great to see people interested. We obviously wish that municipal turnouts were greater, but you are part of the solution, not the problem. You have a tough choice ahead of you. You have 2 seats open, and you have 6 what I think are all strong candidates. I think that tonight you got a good look at each of us, what we're about, what we stand for, what we don't stand for, who we are as a person. I think me personally, you've gotten a good look at my background, the fact that I do lead a life of service, and I have filled leadership roles in this community. And my sole purpose is to continue leading the town as a council person, because this is where my daughter's going to grow up, and I want to make sure that it stays on the path that it's on, and that it is as great 50 or 60 years from now as it is today. And I ask for your vote next Tuesday. Thank you.
So next, So I'm Louis Harmati, everybody knows that. You know, I've done a lot, I guess last 5 to 7 years, I really spent my time talking about individual liberty, property rights, pursuit of happiness, constitutional principles in government. I taught that at Shaw University, not from a constitutional point of view, from an administrative point of view, but I've given out 1,000 constitution books to kids and their families right here in Leland and across the state, but mostly here. And so that's where I spent a lot of my time, and if I get elected, I would look at policies based on constitutional principles. You know, and a lot of you might not understand that, or what that means, but I'll give you a good example of it, real brief. All right, like life. How would you protect life according to the Constitution? Well, number one, we have a police department, we have a fire department, and that's our constitutional responsibility as a town to protect the people's, you know, homes, their safety and things like that. So that's a real small example of that thing. Liberty, how would you protect liberty? Well, you know, liberty is also quality life. I think both of us go together. There's two concepts of quality life. I don't know if I could get it done in the time I have.
Did you want to talk about development?
Was that?
Did you want to talk about development?
No, I want to finish this.
Okay.
I might not get to that.
Okay.
So there's two parts of quality life. One is right here in Leland. You know, what's what, I'm done?
You have a few more seconds because I asked you that question.
Yeah,
Okay.
get off the line.
I don't know if I can finish it anyway, because I only have a couple of seconds, so thank you very much for listening. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's wonderful to see how full so many of these events have been and how many people are so invested in their community's growth moving forward. As I touched on earlier, I wanted to get involved when I saw the way the community was growing, because I've seen communities that, you know, have managed their growth so carefully and grown so beautifully, and I've seen communities that, you know, have said yes a little too frequently, and it's wind up biting them in the end. And I really want to be a voice for healthy growth for our community moving forward. I want to see us vary and attract businesses and more families, and, you know, create more ownership opportunities for people who live in our community, because, you know, that's how you get folks to buy in. And I think, you know, this is a great example of people buying in, and I want to see more of it. So I you know, humbly ask you for your support on November 2nd, and thank you again so much for being here.
First of all, there's so many things that each of us can be doing tonight. You coming is a real blessing to see you come and take part in this event. I want to be your voice to Leland's future. I think that's an important thing, is your voice. I've talked to hundreds of people, and a lot of people don't seem to think their voices get heard. So I think that's very important. But I also want to sustain and improve our quality of life, manage our growth, have the right roads that we need. I mean, the roads in Brunswick Forest are not where I would like them to be across the board from that standpoint. Minimize our taxes the best we can, have vibrant commercial and industrial development, bringing younger families to the area, increasing the parks and recreation for those families from that standpoint. To me, those things equal quality of life. And I think that's my focus to my campaign, is hearing your voice and bringing about quality of life.
Nicholas Newell, hoping you guys will vote, give me at least one of your votes for town council. Apparently you can't give me both of them. I'm not sure who made that rule. This has been an awesome process, but I gotta tell you, I'm exhausted and I cannot wait for it to be over. You know, when I got into this, I had a lot of people say congratulations and also I'm sorry. And I'm very glad to know that this has 99% been a really awesome process where everybody's been positive. I've got to meet so many people in the community. I've put my phone number out there, and boy, have you taken advantage of it. But it's been good. I've been able to, you know, hear from the community and the concerns and the things that they want. And you may see me online or hear me talking about things that I would like to see. A lot of the times I'm just echoing what I hear from other people, but at the end of the day, I'm running for Leland Town Council, not Nicholas's Town Council, and And I'm running because I want to be a voice to all of you, but be a voice to our younger generation. I am the youngest person running for town council by almost a decade, and I think I can offer a different perspective and a different viewpoint that isn't already there. I've got a lot of time and a lot of energy, and this is something I'm very passionate about. So I hope you guys see that, and I can have your vote on November 2nd.
I'm excited just to be a decade over you are.
If I can look half this good in 10 years.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. I hope that this has been informative. I hope
Great job, Joanne. And the candidates will stay around if you'd like to talk to them one-on-one. Thank you so much.